All right. Hello, everyone. I'm David Nicholas here with Aaron Jones, CPA and financial planner. You're listening to the RetireReady Podcast. We're back. Feels good to be back.
Feels good to be back, man.
There's been a lot of changes. It's
It's a
been a
big
long
summer.
summer. I know it's been a long summer. You were changing some diapers and, you getting some sleep yet? Or
Oh yeah. Theo's a champ, man. Yep. He's about a year and 2 months now. It's hard to believe. People always tell you time flies by when you have kids, and you don't doubt them. You really don't know until they're here in your life. And the fact that he's already been a year old, it's an amazing thing. But the diapers are still here. But thankfully, we've got the sleep figured out now.
I see you're still refusing to drink coffee. If for those of you that are watching, not listening to us, I'm drinking coffee. You're drinking water. So, okay, one baby you can probably get by, but if God blesses you with more, you're going to start drinking coffee.
I'm telling you, man, it's a stubbornness thing now because everyone in college, high school, when I was playing sports, early on in marriage, first baby, everyone's like, "You're gonna drink coffee. You're gonna drink coffee." I'm holding strong. Can't do it.
Well, this is a good time since our wonderful head of marketing is here to plug our coffee that we have, Bulls and Bears Coffee. It's a client only. You have to be a client to get it. We don't sell it. It's a specific blend taken from 8 different regions around the world, meticulously picked out for our clients.
Unfortunately, I cannot put my stamp of approval on it because, like you said, I don't drink coffee. But my wife is an avid coffee drinker and she loves it. So,
Well, you can put your stamp of approval on is this big, beautiful bill, I think.
from a tax perspective, I think there's a lot of good in it for sure.
Some good, some bad. Look, I think that we're going to dive into the new legislation that was passed in the big, beautiful bill. I think it could be a game changer for retirees and pre-retirees alike. So I think it's pretty paramount that we discuss this. So I think, yeah, like what is the big, beautiful bill? I mean, again, passed on July 1st of this year, signed into law at the White House right on, I think it was either on the 4th of July. Yeah, the big parade party at the White House. It's an interesting that this bill was passed because we had been talking for years. We've even done podcasts on this about the 2017 tax cuts that were passed. They were lower taxes to the lowest level in 5 decades. But the corporate tax rates were permanent. The individual tax cuts were not permanent. They expired in 2025. So me and Aaron have been on our little dog and pony show going all over, telling the masses, it's coming. Hey, a flood is coming. A flood is coming. Be prepared. A flood is coming. But God in his mercy,
Amen.
we were able to extend these tax cuts out.
And somehow we got a permanent extension done. I still can't believe it.
So it's pretty amazing. So I think let's just talk a little bit about how does the bill impact us as Americans. I think it overwhelmingly impacts retirees.
I really don't like to, worry people about the tax situation that we have going on here. But when you look at back in 2016, before President Trump's first term, no one expected him to win that presidency. The odds are, all the polls, all the reports were that Hillary was going to win by a landslide. And again, by the grace of God, President Trump pulls it out. Passes a tax law that is in his second year of presidency. Got enacted, the Tax Cuts and Job Act, TCJA, lower tax rates, the lowest they've been basically since the 80s, which is huge. But unfortunately, that bill, just like you just teased there, David, corporate taxes permanently in law, which is fantastic. A lot of times they do. But the individual tax rates had this expiration date. So it's like, hey, great, we got a tax cut done, which is great. But heads up, after if he was going to be in office for 2 terms, at the end of that second term, essentially, taxes go up automatically. That third administration or the second administration would not have had to do anything. Tax rates go up. What a lot of people didn't see coming, I don't think, was President Trump's presidency got short-sighted the first time. President Biden wins in 2020, or 2019 election year, wins in 2019, gets enacted, and he just gets to sit by for 4 years. Doesn't have to do anything. And if he gets elected a second time, tax rates were going to go up automatically. Or the next president, like President Trump has just done this summer, had to pass a tax law. He had to get together with the government, the vice president, Congress, the House, Senate, everybody to get to the table, get the job done. And thankfully, we got a permanent tax cut done.
I will say, though, President Trump ran on a lot of the provisions. This was kind of his election win bill, I would say. I think they took up a lot of political capital to get this done. But I will say, so let's talk to you a little bit. Social Security, and I agree with you. The thought of Social Security is absolutely asinine in that you work hard, the government forcefully takes your money from you in the form of Social Security. They invest it at a dismal rate of return. When you add inflation, it's actually a negative rate of return long term. Then they give us our own money back, and what do? They take taxes on us. So they take my money and then they invest it horribly. They give it back to me and then they take taxes. If that's not criminal, I don't know what is, but President Trump ran on eliminating taxes on tips, eliminating taxes on Social Security. Could he get it done?
Yeah. And he got close. He got close. They're doing some things with the math that makes it look, in my opinion, a little bit more appealing than it actually
Do you know
is.
why he couldn't get it done?
On Social Security? Go ahead and tell me.
Well, no, just any thoughts?
I think the sentiment of cutting a revenue stream for the government right now was tough to get done. Okay. No tax on tips. If I'm being honest, as a CPA, tips are technically reportable income, even if it's a cash tip. Nobody reports cash tips. They just don't. Okay. So no tax on tips. I think the math behind it was like, hey, a lot of tips aren't getting taxed anyways.
I'm going to throw something at you. How many Republicans do we have in the Senate? And again, I just had to Google this to make sure.
Oh, in the Senate now we've got 58 to 60.
I wish we had 60. So we have 53 Republicans in the Senate, 45 Democrats in the Senate, and we have 2 independents. So that equals our 100 senators. Now, we're going back to our civics 101 when we were all in elementary school, middle school. How many votes do you need to pass a bill in the Senate?
Oh, in the Senate, it depends on reconciliation or filibuster.
Yeah. So typically we need 60 votes in the Senate to pass a bill. How many senators do Republicans have? 53. How many independents? Well, there's 2. So if the 2 independents, which they wouldn't, if the 2 independents automatically voted Republicans, you get 55. You need 100% of Republicans, which Republicans themselves have differences in opinion on this bill. So you'd have to get 100% of the Republican senators and then 5 Democrat senators to come and join and vote on the president's bill. What are the odds of that happening?
In today's world, 0.
I think it's good that we start with this to understand, because there's some people disappointed. Well, even Democrats, right? That said, President Trump said he was going to end tax on Social Security, couldn't get it done. Well, it's really just the makeup of the Senate right now that you just can't get it done. So what did they do? They went through a process called, and you just said this, Aaron, reconciliation. And so what reconciliation is, there's a few benefits, but with reconciliations, it's a simple majority. So as long as you have 50 votes and then the vice president can be the 51st vote, the bill can get passed. But it has to meet something. And the reason I'm spending time on this, because it's going to make why the bill was done the way it was done. It has to meet something called the Byrd Rule. The Byrd Rule is named after Senator Robert Byrd. The Byrd Rule, Section 313, yada, yada, was adopted in the 1980s to limit extraneous provisions from inclusions in reconciliation bills. Because reconciliation bills are considered using an expedited process, the Byrd Rule is aimed at preventing the use of reconciliation to move legislative agendas unrelated to spending or tax bills. And it limits Congress's ability for the bill to increase deficits. So here's what's interesting. So the big, beautiful bill, President Trump wanted to completely eliminate taxes on Social Security.
Yeah.
The problem was when the CBO scored it, the CBO said, it increases the deficit by way too much. You can't do that in reconciliation. So why don't we start there? How did the Trump administration get around? Because there are provisions for seniors. It's not explicitly stated Social Security taxes are eliminated. But tell me the math around what they did with that.
So what they essentially did with no taxes on Social Security was that they just added a new bonus standard deduction for seniors 65 and older. Now, there are income limits, as with most tax laws, there are income limits, but if you're basically your modified adjusted gross income or AGI, and a lot of times in retirement, your gross income is your modified adjusted gross income, is $150,000 or less, $75,000 for single filers, $150,000 for married filing jointly, you just get an additional $12,000 written off on your taxes. And that is whether you itemize or take the standard. As long as your income is under that threshold, there is a phase out, so it doesn't fully phase out until $250,000 for joint filers, $150,000 for single filers. But I mean, if you fill up your AGI at that $150,000 limit, you just got back $2,600 on your taxes next year. Sorry, that's actually starting this year in 2025. It's a pretty great bill.
And the idea is that would have been essentially make neutral the Social Security taxes.
Essentially. So basically, the way they did the math behind it, if more people now that are still taking Social Security get to write off an extra $6,000 or $12,000 of income, then a little bit over 90% of the people taking Social Security now no longer pay taxes on Social Security. And so I'll take them at their word for it. I have not looked at the research behind how many people actually pay taxes on Social Security every year. I know the clients that we work with here, many of them do pay taxes on Social Security. But this bill, even though it didn't quite cut taxes completely on Social Security, does help quite a few Americans out there, and especially in their retirement years, every dollar counts. So I'll take it.
Let's just give an example really quick because I'm looking here. So this is for a married couple, both age 65, filing jointly. And let's just say they've got a household income of $100,000 a year. So 65 years old, filing jointly, they make $100,000 a year through Social Security, through investments, maybe a little bit of wages, pensions. All right, so what are we looking at here? So we've got $100,000 in earnings. We've got a standard deduction of $31,500. The standard for everybody. Doesn't matter your age, doesn't matter your earnings. You're eligible for that standard deduction. No phase out on that based on income. No. Okay. So what was it in 2024? We've got it here, 29,200. So it's gone up to 31,500. A 65 plus deduction of 3,200. So that's 33,700 just right there from just your standard deduction, your 65 deduction. But then you also get what you were just mentioning, the senior bonus deduction. So husband or wife, how much will they get household?
$12,000 right there.
So you add up your 31,500, your 3,265 plus your 12,000 senior bonus deduction. That's taxable income. You started with 100, you've netted it all the way down to 53,300. What bracket does that put you in?
You're barely above the 12% bracket with that.
Yeah. I mean, it really is unbelievable. So that difference is pretty striking. And so I think that's the way that the Trump administration was able to get around the completely eliminating total tax on Social Security. I disagree with it. I would have loved to push to get taxes eliminated for everyone on Social Security, but the math in the Senate just can't get it done. Just can't get it done. The other thing is that senior deduction, is it permanent or does it expire?
No, that one actually does have an expiration date, and it lines up with the end of President Trump's term. So we've got it for 4 tax years because tax preparers really hate this bill, actually, because this is one of the few tax bills whose most of the laws actually start the year the bill is passed. Most tax laws in the past don't kick in until the following tax year. But the new tax rates, this bonus senior deduction, no tax on tips, no tax on overtimes, all of that starts in 2025. And so all these tax preparation softwares, these CPA firms, these local boutique tax firms, all of them are scrambling starting in July for the rest of the year because they're trying to make sure all their softwares can include all these new provisions in there. So
No, that's really, really good. Really, really good. Okay. So let's hit some of the other features. So we've got the, where's the next one to go? The Trump accounts. That's interesting.
I kind of like the Trump accounts. So, this is one of the things that I really love about President Trump's administration because he's trying to get America back to their roots. And one of the things that America was really built on was family values. We valued the home. We valued an intact nuclear family. And the Trump accounts are a small way, but one way to incentivize more kids, right? My wife and I are very pro kids. We've got Theo. I talk about him with our clients a lot and on the show before. We are very much hoping, Lord willing, to have more kids, hopefully very soon. Efforts are being made on that front.
So they would be eligible for the Trump account.
Our child, if we have a baby in the next 3 years, gets $1,000 automatically added to a Trump account.
And so that means, so let's see, look at this. So you can combine, others can contribute. So the government puts in $1,000 and then others can contribute up to a combined $5,000 a year. So this can be your parents, this can be grandparents, this can be your employer, uh, and this is for the child to use once they turn 18. This is not retirement, but this can be used once they turn 18. This money is available for them to access, and they may want to keep it in and invest it. There may be other options there, but $1,000 made by the federal government for children that are born from 2025 through 2028. My kids all missed the Trump account. That's okay, but we've got other stuff going for them. Employers, this is interesting, are allowed to contribute up to 2,500 tax free to employee accounts. Now, if the business got a deduction on that and the employees got it tax free, that would be interesting. We got to check that because if the employer does get a tax deduction for that, that's actually pretty significant.
There's definitely some incentive here. They essentially work as a modified 529 plan. Different limits and then different restrictions on them, but you can be used for first-time home purchases up to $10,000, and any type of college tuition. So, and then if not used for those, there's a few specific,
Yeah, I'm just sure you still get the penalty.
yeah, you still get the penalty. So they do still kind of act like a retirement account, but there are some exceptions like education and like first-time home buying. And that's one of the discounts of a 529. 529 is just used for education. There are certain provisions nowadays where you have a little bit more flexibility with 529 plans, but especially having that first-time home purchase for these Trump accounts, I think there's a big win for a new type of a child savings plan that you can start adding some money to if you have kids in the next 4 years.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. So grandparents out there that, the 529s are fantastic, but you may want to think about actually if you have a grandbaby that's being born, if you have a son or a daughter that's being born, think about that. You can put up to 5,000. I mean, imagine if everyone in your family got together and maxed out these accounts for each of the next generation of Americans coming in. You could do that every year. I mean, is it an every year thing or is it one time? At 5,000 annual. I mean, that's life changing. We should do so. We should model that out. But it's well over 100,000 of just contributions over 18 years. And then if you add in the growth on top of that, you can probably run it while we're doing it. And again, I actually think the long term goal here is to get Americans off the dependence of Social Security. That I know that's fighting words and people don't like hearing that. But again, if you do the math on Social Security, the math on Social Security is abysmal. It is absolutely atrocious. As an investment manager, it's painful when I think about the math of Social Security. But we've had it, and it is what it is. We've made promises to prior generations, but this is a way that we can, I think, fill that gap for sure.
Yeah. I want to go back to that point there, Dave, in just a second. But yeah, Trump account starting at $1,000 when the year the baby's born. Let's say hopefully it's this year, right? You got 18 years, $5,000 annual contribution that goes in. That's the max. 8% rate of return, let's say.
If they're working with us, sure. Not compliant. No, that is not.
Yep. By the time they're 18, that's just under $200,000 that can be used for first-time home buying or can potentially be used for college education if needed.
I mean, think about this for a second. Imagine every one of your kids. If you have a kid that I know my older sister has kids that are just now over 18 years old. Imagine kids over 18 starting out with $200,000 to start their future, to buy a home. I think this is just game changing. It really is for the next generation. If you believe in setting up the next generation for success, I think this is something as a grandparent you should do, and you should start doing it now as parents as well. And I'll even put employers out there. If employers can jump in and help out for their employees that are having babies, wow, what an amazing thing.
You said something pretty powerful there a minute ago, David, though, and you and I have talked about this before about Social Security. I'm fine with the idea of a forced savings plan, but when you take it by force and you, in my opinion, mismanage it for it, mismanage the funds, and with inflation, you basically make me pay you again in retirement. Not exactly the deal we signed up for. Okay.
Yeah, well, hey, you and Karl Marx have something in common. You're fine. You're fine with forced behavior.
I know discipline is tough, lifestyle creep is real, and there are some challenges that, hey, it's nice to have the ability to have a retirement plan that you can rely on. But I'd rather it be the individual's responsibility for how that gets managed. Okay. If you want to keep it safe and throw it in treasuries, which is kind of like what Social Security does anyways, great. Keep it in treasuries. Totally fine. Put it in a money market account. Totally okay.
The challenge has just been for the people that don't know how to invest, right? But you should at least give the option. Like you're saying, like, yeah, take the government option. Or, hey, no, but we all know the money's not there. the money has gone into a general account for Social Security. It's been wasted. It's gone. And so young Americans today working are paying for those that are currently on Social Security. It's a regulated Ponzi scheme. It is the reality of it. It's money's going in. There's no money in a lockbox. It's all gone.
And I don't know what the long-term plan for Social Security is going to be. Our government oftentimes, when a problem arises, they wait until the last possible minute to fix it, and then they come up with something that fixes it eventually. But you are starting to see signs, the Trump account's one of them, about, hey, what if we try to move away maybe not completely, but to a certain degree from the Social Security system. So other than the big beautiful bill, we actually had two other tax laws pass somewhat recently that allude to this as well. So the Secure Act 2019, Secure Act 2.0 in 2022, some of the provisions in the Secure Act 2.0 have actually gotten delayed and start next year. One of them being an automatic enrollment in a company-sponsored 401k plan. Plan administrators starting in 2026 now, unless something else gets delayed, which could always happen in tax world, but I'm not expecting it to, they have to automatically enroll their employees now, starting at about a 3% rate. And so, again, it's kind of like a Social Security system where you're still getting forced into it, but now it's under a 401k plan, which you don't have necessarily full control over, but you can set a risk tolerance. You can choose the funds you're allowed to invest in. And again, if you invest in just the markets and maybe an S&P 500 index fund inside your 401k plan versus letting the government manage your Social Security taxes, usually leads to a pretty great long-term return over time.
Yeah, you're right. I must have missed that because I'm reading here now Secure Act 2.0, mandatory enrollment requirements. So this is interesting. So it will require employers automatic enrollment for employees with elected deferral contributions of at least 3% and no more than 10% the first year of participation. Permit participants to withdraw their automatic elective within 90 days. If no investment election is made, permit the automatic elective deferrals to be invested in a qualified default investment alternative. Interesting. Yeah. So I think it's good. And I think that, again, this is part of being in a government that can mandate things. And I think that's fine. But like you said, you have control over it, which I think is the big difference. Let's estate tax.
Yeah.
Let's talk through that a little bit because there was another change in the BBB that discussed or really made permanent the estate tax provisions, which was a fear for a lot of our clients, a fear for a lot of investors was, hey, we've seen the estate tax law go as low as 1 million back in 2000, early 2000s. So where do we end up on that?
Well, yeah, and President Biden, during one of his budget proposals, and when his term was on, he was proposing to get that limit down to $3.5 million. Now, the assumption was that was per person, and so you're still talking about $7 million for a married couple, but that's still a lot lower than what the new provision is, because the new provision is $15 million per person of an estate tax limit. Retirement accounts that are inherited are still subject to income tax potentially, but your total estate, if it's not more than $15 million, it's going to go to your generations completely tax-free.
So 15 million starting in 2026, 30 million for a married couple, index for inflation. One of the big misconceptions like we get is if you have $1 million in your IRA, for example, and you pass that on to your kids or grandkids, they're going to have to pay tax on that $1 million. It doesn't matter that we're not subject to estate taxes. You have estate taxes in this column. You have income taxes in this column. Two very separate things, meaning you may or may not be eligible for estate taxes. That's if you're passing on more than 15 million per person or 30 million as a couple. But income taxes are due regardless because it's not your income tax bracket that matters. It's who's receiving that account that matters. That would be your kids or grandkids. So that brings us to, I think, some of the practical outcomes of the BBB. How does that impact? Because we do a lot of Roth conversions planning at our office. We've done small Roth conversion plans. We did a case last year, close to $5 million in an IRA, complete conversion in 1 year, $2 million to the IRS. Good news is the markets have been up since then. That account balance has recovered. I mean, a majority of those taxes paid, which is almost the best case scenario. Where does that, so if the current tax rates are permanent, how does that change the way you look at Roth conversions now?
Yeah, this is where it goes back to some of the other things inside the big beautiful bill. So I think President Trump has done a lot of good in the first, we're recording this in August, so first 7 months of the administration so far. He's got 3.5 more years to do even more things that can continue to grow our economy, strengthen our country once again. But even inside a bill that keeps tax rates low, has a lot of other potential tax savings involved in it, still a pretty big spending bill. Okay. Now, David, now you talked about this a lot. You actually shared this at one of our quarterly breakfasts that we do throughout the year. The projections that this bill is assuming in terms of GDP growth that leads it to a deficit bill are pretty conservative. Okay.
Yeah, CBO uses 1.8% economic growth from GDP growth from 2027 to 2035.
So, I think that number is going to end up being pretty low. And so I don't think it's going to be quite as a deficit spending as one would lead to believe, or at least as the projections are assuming that it is. But it's still a spending bill. And it also raises the debt ceiling pretty significantly. While they don't have plans to spend that yet, it takes one crisis, one war, one emergency for us to start spending more than what we plan to spend. And so this is why I'm encouraged. I didn't want to pay more taxes. I know you didn't want to pay more taxes. I'm sure our listeners did not want to have to pay more taxes starting next year. I don't have significant encouragement yet that taxes will stay this low forever.
Forever, right. Just because the current bill is permanent, that can change based on...
You call it permanent, but the next administration can change the law just like President Trump did.
If it can get down, all you need is 50 votes in the Senate, and a Democrat majority White House and Senate could potentially change this rule in the future.
Midterms are going to tell us a lot next year. That'll see what party controls the House and the Senate again. But when you think about just this idea, whether or not we had a tax revenue problem or a spending problem, which we absolutely still do, those problems have not been fixed just yet. Tax rates are the lowest they've been in 40 years. I mean, again, it's hard to say assure and guarantee when you talk about tax planning because taxes change just about every 4 years anyways. But the odds that tax rates are going to be any lower than they are today, that seems pretty far-fetched to me.
You still are actively recommending Roth conversions to clients if the math makes sense.
We do. And now again, I'm now, we've been for a long time, for the last, basically 8 years, have been assuming that starting in 2026, tax rates to go up. Okay. Those assumptions have gotten extended out. I typically don't build a plan that assumes tax rates go up no sooner than 10 years. That would get potentially another Republican president in the office once again. And it would also allow for, God forbid, another president, whether either side of the party line, that wants to raise tax in the next 10 years.
What if, though, let's just say best case scenario, taxes do stay this way for our retirement 30 years, for the next 30 years? So tax rates are going to stay low. Do you still convert?
This is where I don't like to build a plan that requires it to work with the assumption tax rates go up.
Okay. So you're modeling this assuming tax rates stay the same.
Even if tax rates stay the same.
So where's the ultimate benefit to the client then?
So number one, there's a lot of variables that go into Roth conversion plans. You well know, David. So you've got age. Age is a factor. Okay. If you're in your 80s doing Roth conversions, tax rates actually might now not go up in your lifetime anymore. I hope they don't actually. Okay. So Roth conversions may actually be a play, not necessarily for your lifetime, but for the beneficiaries, for your heirs, for your kids and your grandkids, the people that you love in your life, that, hey, if the odds are you're going to leave a pretty sizable estate to your kids, does it make sense for you to pay some of those taxes in your lifetime for your kids?
So if you're not going to spend all of the money in your lifetime, there's no way you're going to spend it all. There's no plan to spend it all. You might as well maximize it then. If you're going to be giving it off to your kids or grandkids anyway, then you're saying, well, they're going to get to keep more of it because they could receive it completely tax-free.
Exactly right. So we got to remember a couple different laws around retirement accounts. So number one, the government starts forcing you to take income off of them at a certain age. For some people right now, that's 73. For a lot of our listeners, that's actually going to be pushed to age 75, starting in 2033. Number two, it's also how these accounts are inherited now. So both a traditional IRA and a Roth IRA are subject to that 10-year rule. Okay. Once they're inherited by a non-spouse, so spouses get to treat them as their own, so no issues there. But by kids and grandkids, nieces and nephews, aunts and uncles, the people that you love in your life, they have 10 years to fully deplete the value of those accounts and get it out of those retirement accounts. Now, Roth IRAs, you're fine. You could hold it for 10 years, get 10 years of tax-free growth and then take it all at the end of the 10th year. Traditional IRAs that are inherited, that's now however much was inherited. Let's say you saved $1 million in retirement. If you just held on to your principal and it was still $1 million when it got inherited, you got 2 kids maybe, that's $500,000 of taxable income that, if assuming it doesn't grow at all in the 10 years, that you have to take out and recognize as income.
So figure 50,000 a year.
Yep, on top
Of
of whatever else you're already
okay,
making.
so it could be that they're in a 24% bracket already, or
I mean, if you think about it, if you if you passed away in your 80s, let's just say, right? The odds are your kids are in their 50s, maybe early 60s. You get some of the top taxable income you'll ever have in your lifetime. You just inherited $500,000 pre-tax.
which that's probably on the low end. It's for some it could be a million, 2 million, 3 million, 5 million.
Exactly right. Okay. And now you're having to add all of that ordinary income tax. There's no special treatment for it. It is ordinary income tax on top of whatever else you're already making.
So let's look at our brackets here. I want to put this in perspective. So, a married filing jointly, you're at a 22% bracket up to 200,000, roughly 206,000. Let's just say you have to inherit. Let's say you pass on $2 million, and you have 100,000 each in income coming off of it for 10 years. You're at a 24, but let's just say it's more. Let's just say you have a single child. They inherit $2 million. They have to add another 200,000 to their bracket. That puts them into the 32% bracket. And then if you're in Georgia, you add state. That's 38% effective, or a 38% bracket when you might be converting at an average effective rate of 12% or less. So the difference is almost 20 to 25% or more of additional taxes. Yeah. So that's where I think the math, and the reason we wanted to go through this a little bit is just to see, right, if tax rates are still low, you may say, well, they don't need to convert because I'm going to stay in a low tax bracket. Well, no, I actually think it gives you actually more of a runway. Maybe we don't have to rush and do it like we did it in the past to try to get it all done in 3 to 5 years. You may could draw this out 7 to 10, 12 years if possible. But what it does is now just allows you to keep under that. If you're in the 22% bracket, stay in that 22% bracket. If you're in the 12% bracket, stay in that bracket. And it allows you to start making these conversions, but do it, I would say, in a much more slower pace if necessary to draw that out so it doesn't continue to push you up in a higher bracket.
I think another scenario that's helpful, we do a lot of long-term cash flow projections out into retirement. If you're someone who by your 80s, you would have spent down all of your pre-tax investment accounts by your 80s, okay, you certainly probably wouldn't want to do aggressive Roth conversions right now. You maybe only want to fill up the current tax bracket that you'll be in your lifetime there. But if you're someone in retirement and you still take income off retirement, you'll still have to do your required distributions, but you're going to be in your 80s, and conservative projections still show large pre-tax balances by the time you get into your mid-80s. You should definitely consider the idea of doing Roth conversions, because the odds are you're not going to spend that down in retirement, and it's going to go to somebody. Now, I don't like the idea of paying more taxes than I have to pay, but remember, someone has to pay tax on this money. Because once you get money into a traditional 401k or to a traditional IRA, unless you just want to donate it all to charity, it's really hard to get that money out without having to pay taxes on it. And so sometimes it means paying a little bit more tax in your lifetime so you actually get to keep more of these hard-earned dollars that you've worked so hard to build and save, and you get to see it go where you want it to go, with your family. Yeah. So I do still think now is a great time to do Roth conversions. Maybe the risk that taxes are still significantly higher in retirement for some people aren't as high of a risk. I think if you are in your 50s, 60s, maybe even your early 70s, I still see a risk that taxes could be higher in the future. But even if they're not, consider the impact it may have on your family, your future generations of doing Roth conversions today.
A couple other just quick highlights of the bill. The SALT cap changes, which was a big thing if you have property in a high tax state like California, New York, really just even in Georgia, if you just have an income or have a mortgage that's high on a property that's high. Let's see. So state deduction for state and local taxes, increasing the cap from 10,000 to 40,000. from 2025 to 2029. More generous SALT deduction cap is paired with an income limit starting at 500,000, which phases out the more generous deduction back down to 10,000 for taxpayers with incomes over 600,000. So, look, for those of you that say, look, all these bailouts are going to the rich, actually, we've just named 3 now that the more you make, the more you're penalized. The less benefit you get from SALT, from Social Security, from the income brackets. I mean, you're penalized the more you make on this. Bonus depreciation, I think, is big. Also, I think is worth talking about for businesses. So 2017 tax cuts came out with 100% bonus depreciation, which means, let's just say you're a business, you're an HVAC company, and you need to buy a new truck, and that truck costs you $100,000. Well, with 100% bonus depreciation, you can write off the entire cost, $100,000 of that truck, in the first year. You can depreciate it fully. That had gotten all the way down, I think, 60% this year. That's come back. That came back. So for business owners, if you're looking to put equipment into service, whether that's trucks, planes, automotive, furniture, whatever it may be, you get to take that 100% bonus deduction, which I think is a great thing to get capital moving here in the U.S.
Depreciation is a great thing for small businesses, especially because it allows you to actually invest in your business and be able to write it off on your taxes as well. Because the depreciation is a non-cash deduction. So you still got to buy the truck. So it's not a dollar for dollar exactly, but when you can put more money in that's investing in your business, that allows you to either get a new project on there, hire somebody, have the equipment that they can use for whatever service you're offering somebody out there. I think it's going to help a lot of small businesses out there.
Love it. Yep. And then let's see, as we come in, no tax on auto loan interest. So that's capped though up to the first $10,000 in interest. So American cars, so all of you German Porsche, Mercedes, English Land Rover, McLaren lovers, you're not going to get the interest deduction. But if you buy a good old fashioned Chevy, no Hondas, no Kias. If you get you a nice Ford, a Chevy, Caddy, GM, Suburban. So if you're a business owner, you could buy a brand new Suburban, which I don't know if you looked at the cost of those. They're about $100,000. Write off the entire cost of the Suburban as long as it's used for business purposes, and write off the interest if you borrow on it up to $10,000 per year. There is a phase out above. Again, here's another one that you're penalized the more you make. If you make more than $200,000 a year, you get a phase out. You get penalized. So this bill was really directed towards middle to low income wage earners get, I think, the most benefits out of this bill. You could make an argument that if you believe in limited government, that the law should be applied equally, that you may disagree with that. But a lot of attack is that these tax bills only benefit the wealthy. That's just not the case. This tax bill was geared toward hardworking middle-class Americans and also retirees as well. Last question here, maybe as we finish up. Aaron, does this change when you should retire at all? Does it change the facts of when you should retire?
No, not in my opinion. I think you should retire based on your goals, not just based on what tax bracket you might be in and when you might be in it.
So no advantage of saying I'm going to retire now because of taxes or delay at all?
I think it provides people an advantage to retire potentially a little sooner than expected.
The plan has to still line up.
Plan's got to still line up. Yeah. Again, like taxes are definitely an important part of your retirement plan that you've got to consider, right? Now that you have this bonus senior deduction, if you're retiring at 65 or older, okay, what does that do to your taxable income every year? If you want to spend $10,000-$15,000 a month, you may not get as much of the senior bonus deduction, so it may not have mattered anyways. So no, I wouldn't recommend letting you base your retirement on what laws the government may or may not be changing, unless there's other significant tax changes that come down the line one day. But I would argue that this bill actually encourages people that may be able to retire a little sooner because they're actually going to keep more of their income in their pocket now.
So one thing that everyone should do listening right now is take a look at their tax. So we look at their tax returns. I mean, what's something that we should be looking at currently based on the new bill?
Take a look at your tax returns. David mentioned the SALT tax deduction. Now, Georgia does have a state income tax. In retirement, that your state taxes do go down quite a bit. But if you are still working with that new SALT tax deduction, if you've got high property taxes, you've got a decent income, pay a decent amount of state taxes. If you still have a mortgage, you can write off your mortgage interest. If you make charitable contributions, you can write those off under the itemized. You actually might itemize your tax deductions this year. So keep an eye on your tax return. If you're 65 and older, be mindful of your taxable income every year. Remember that bonus senior deduction, if you're 65 and older, does start phasing out after $150,000 of income. So this is actually something, going back to Roth conversions, that's we've gone back to the drawing board for a few plans, because now if we're doing Roth conversion, that's taxable income. If we're increasing our income above that 150, we actually lose a benefit now.
And it may be, if you already have some Roth dollars to keep you under the 150, you may want to start pulling from some of your Roth accounts potentially, if the math makes sense, to still get qualified for that additional deduction potentially.
With your tax preparer, with your CPA, with your tax planner like myself, we've been doing this a lot this year. We've just gone back to the drawing board. Does the previous plan, is it still in line with what we've expected going forward? Or, especially with some of these new benefits, increased itemized deductions between state and local taxes, and this new bonus standard deduction, does it make sense to actually keep our taxable income a little bit lower, or consider where we're taking income from in other places?
That's great. Well, hope you enjoyed going a deep dive into the big, beautiful bill. As always, you can reach out to our office at Nicholas Wealth Management. Go to nicholaswealth.com, set up an appointment with our wonderful team, even Aaron himself and the other great advisors that we have at the office. You can follow us on social media, Instagram, Facebook, and X. We'd love to have you follow us. As always, you can check out other episodes of the Retire Ready podcast. We'd love to hear from you. You can check out those to learn more. We'll see you right back here next week for another week of Retire Ready. We'll see you then.